Well, thank you very much, Julie. So is the sound okay in the back? Can everyone hear? I know that's been a problem sometimes. It's okay? All right. Well, I'm going to begin by talking a little bit about myself, which I usually do not do. But probably some of you are already talking to each other saying, man, Les is looking tough. He ain't walking very good. You're right. I'm not walking very good. So about 2 months ago, it hit that my right leg was paining me, especially in the thigh. And I thought, oh, it must be the spine. Some of you have been telling me about that, how that works out. And so I went to a spine specialist, and I walked towards him, or I was on my crutches. He said, I think it's your hip. And it is, and of course for that I'm going to Mayo Clinic in Rochester. Minnesota, if you've got something major, you go there. So I'm scheduled for hip replacement surgery 3 weeks from this Friday. But folks, I got a call Tuesday when I arrived here in town. They could have done it this Friday because they had a cancellation. And I tell you, if I had known. So I enjoy doing this because my career is education and research. So this is one way I can contribute to this wonderful club. And I know many of you feel like I do. I like the glass. There's no question. I like talking about the glass. I like, did you see what he got? And wow, that was a sleeper on eBay and all that. But the truth of the matter is, the best part of this club is all the members and all of you. So many of you are such dear, wonderful friends. You've added so much to my life, and I know all of you feel that your fellow members in this club have done the same. So it really is about the people, and you're special to me. I know many of you extremely well, and I'm hoping to get to know the rest of you well too. And we got first-timers from Minnesota. Yay, I see them all three from Minnesota. Not from St. Paul. So my first convention was in 1992. I never had the privilege of being at Old Shenandoah, like many of you had. So my first convention was here in 92 by chance. So it's been a long time. And 2 years later, when I've tried to attend every year since. I've missed 2 for work, and of course we had the pandemic. But in 94, my third convention, this was the convention booklet, and if those of you that remember, Mark and I went to a lot of work putting together convention booklets. Guess what the theme was 30 years ago at this convention? The Roaring 20's. So this was helpful for me to put together some stuff for this program tonight. Then in 1998, 4 years after that, I became a show dealer here, and it's just so fun to visit with all of you. What you'd like to add to your collections or what you found and that type of thing. So the club is very special to me. So we're going to go on to the Roaring 20's. And although Cambridge produced wonderful glass during the Roaring 20's, and this glass, all from my collection, I borrowed a little glass last year from Cindy Arndt for the museum. That didn't work out so well. I got it back to her. I thought I was getting it back to her, but it took a trip somewhere else. So I thought, nope, I'm going to do that this year. I'm just going to use my own glass. But looking around the room, and I know what many of you collect, the most popular collecting areas aren't from the 1920s. It's the 1930s, overwhelmingly, is what many of you collect. So in the 30s, that's when those Helmer's colors came out. Carmine, you like that? Amethyst, Royal Blue, Forest Green. Oh, that knocks off a few of you. Heather Bloom, Crown Tuscan, they're all 30s. Windsor Blue, a little later. And the lines, Everglades, 1930s. Tally Ho, 3400. Gadroon, Nautilus. Caprice, there's some of those here. Seashell, they're all 1930s. Collecting area of mine, the nudes. A lot of you collect those. That's the 30s. Most of the enamel decorations are the 30s, including the varsity sports. A couple of you like Japonica a little bit, 1930s. We thought 37. Now we know it's probably 34 that was introduced. The bunny boxes, the turkeys, Rose Point, Dolores, Apple Blossom. I haven't seen Jim and Janice yet. Gloria. I think Gloria's going to be here. Diane, Portia, Elaine, Vichy, Chantilly, Wildflower, Candlelight, they're all 1930s. They're not 1920s. And that is a big part of the group that's here, the things that they like the most. If you go prior to the 20s, there's not a lot of hot collecting areas for the glass that was made prior to the 20s. So the ebony with the enamel floral, Richie, that you got a lot of, that was in the 19-teens. Carnival glass, of course, was in the 19-teens, and the candy containers. Some of you like those very much. So, right, Chris? And so those predated 1920. Now, the 1920s. I can't help it when I'm thinking about this glass. I always think about the time it was made and what the factory may have been going through. It just comes natural to me. Maybe that's because of my career in education. But the 1920s were a really unique time in the United States because it was sandwiched between World War I, that ended in 1918, and the Great Depression that hit in 1929. So, and of course that we've heard about it because of COVID. What came right at the end of World War I was the Spanish flu. And it's actually a flu type like this avian flu that now we're dealing with right now. So World War I was from 1914 to 1980. The global Spanish flu was from 1918 to about 1920. And they had a problem then. People didn't want a mask. Does that sound familiar? So in the Twin Cities, St. Paul and Minneapolis, another thing St. Paul, let's take a little pride of, they stuck with their masks pretty well. Minneapolis did not, and it came back raging in Minneapolis because of that. So the masks probably were more effective for that type of flu than they were for COVID, perhaps. So 1920 hit after the war and the Spanish flu. It was yippee. We can go to town, and the economy was growing beautifully. There was one kind of side activity or side event, though, that kind of took away from the yippee. And what was that? Prohibition hit in 1920. But Nathan, did that keep people from drinking? No, not in the least. My hometown in southern Minnesota is called Blooming Prairie. But Al Capone had a shop out in the countryside. It was called Boozing Prairie in the neighborhood. And my dad would tell the stories about the people he knew when he was a little boy would stop by there was a back alley where you could pick up your alcohol in Boozing Prairie. So no, then there were speakeasies and that type of thing. But the prohibition stuck in there till 1933, and 13 years. And telling people they can't have something is often not a good thing. So FDR signed the legislation and said, I think it's a good day for a beer. And we haven't gone down that pathway again. So the other thing in the 20s, of course, was Art Deco. I love it. I think a lot of you love Art Deco design. Started in the teens, but was really flourishing in the 20s. The Jazz Age. You think about going with the wardrobe that was being worn at that time. Modern technology was coming aboard and embraced radio, telephone, automobiles, motion pictures, electrical appliances. So there was a lot to be happy about and to celebrate at that time. So the USA was enjoying tremendous economic growth during that period of time. So that's why it was referred to as the Roaring '20s. But then, October 1929, everything changed. The stock market crash. So from 10 years to 1929 to 1939, it was rough. And we talk about rough today. My goodness, unemployment reached 25% in 1932. And again, your parents or grandparents, I'm sure, have filled you in on what a rough time it is. So for the Cambridge Glass Factory, the 1930s were really a rough period of time. So all those things we talked about from the 30s, Cambridge was making that during the Great Depression. And maybe that's why they came up with such unique colors and etchings and patterns to sell. It had to be good. in order to sell to the public that did have some money to buy something. So for the Cambridge factory, the Cambridge community, World War II began then in '39, just as we're coming out of the Depression. The U.S. came in 41, bombing Pearl Harbor, and then after World War II, then all the cheap imports came in. So you think about the Cambridge glass factory. The best time for the factory was probably the Roaring '20s because the economy was good and they didn't have any of those other conflicts going on. So, you think about it, in the 80 years since World War II, we haven't had any of those kinds of calamities. Yeah, we had the Vietnam War, we had the tech bubble. I mean, we've had some things to do. We had COVID, of course. We've had periods of high inflation, high interest rates. But basically, we've had it pretty good compared to what a lot of our parents and grandparents had to do, and certainly the Cambridge glass factory. So, Cambridge in the 1920s. They launched their opaques, and I've got the opaques on this side of the table. There's some of you that like it a lot and treasure it. It is good for decorating. In 1922, they came out with, they really reintroduced ebony, because ebony was in and out of the factory line. It was in and out all the time. So they reintroduced ebony in 1922, as well as azurite, the blue color. The other one that came out very shortly after that is Carrara, the early milk glass. 23, Primrose. I'm going right down the line here on the colors. We'll come back and talk about them. Then Helio. There's some people that love the purple. And I know there's a lot of decorators that love Helio for decorating purposes yet today. Ivory, I've got quite a few examples here. It was introduced in 1924. Advertising for it in the trade journals ended in 1926, but I think it was probably made longer than that based on all the different decorations and shapes that it's found in. Jade in 1924, also ended, we think, in 26. There was onyx, the light tan. There's not a lot of it, but that was introduced in 1925. So all of these opaques from here over kind of had run their course, at least in the trade journals, up until 1926. And then what did they introduce in 1926? This color. Now, isn't this gorgeous? I don't think so. I collect it because I think it's so ugly. Why, when they had all of these colors, would they that late come out with Pomona green? You like it? You like it? Okay, good. I like it because I think it's ugly. But if you like it because you think it's pretty, that's okay. And of course, as collectors, we called it. It's in my collection. It's in my collection. It's in there for time being. So we called it avocado because we weren't confident on the name. Although the Bennett book and others had Pomona green in there, and then the Helmer's Batch book came out, and that convention in 1994, 30 years ago, Bill Quarter was the featured speaker, and he had interacted a lot with Henry Helmers. So after that, I flew to Kentucky, connected with him, we got Helmer's Batch book out, and I was able to learn a lot about the colors from it. But why did we call it avocado temporarily? If you're my age bracket, there's a real good reason. What? Kitchen appliances. My mom, when she got her new avocado refrigerator, she was in heaven. And it was about exactly this color, right? I don't know if it's the color of avocado, but it's a color of refrigerator that was avocado, right? So we found out, I spoke at the convention here, I'm going to guess about 10 years ago, something like that. And I was saying these same things. And then Toby and Marty says, oh, we've got pieces from the desk set that have the factory label underneath that say Pomona green. So we confirmed it. The official factory name for the color and the advertising apparently too was Pomona green. So thank you, Toby and Marty. Got us the pictures right away, and we got everything changed in all the materials. So strange. And that one, the advertising ended about 1928. So right before the crash of the stock market. Of course, crystal, I've got a couple examples here, was made throughout time. And it's funny, people think crystal would be the easiest color to make. Well, it's actually perhaps the hardest color to make. To get it crystal and doesn't have any kind of tint to it. And actually, all of you know that not every crystal, you get one piece of crystal and then you get one thing, as a pear, a candlestick or something. Oh, they're not exactly the same. And the biggest problem was iron and sand, which would turn glass green. Nothing like green tinted crystal. And so they had to compensate, and so it wasn't easy. Then they came with the topaz and Cambridge's Vaseline, then mulberry in 1923, and light emerald. So you see there was a lot of overlap here in these two groups, so that these opaques, but they were also introducing new transparent colors there during the 1920s. So it wasn't like it was all opaques first and then the transparents. They were overlapping at the same time and being introduced. Now, topaz lasted into the 1930s. Mulberry, we've got the dolphin candlestick here and a Marjorie goblet. This was a very short-term color. And actually, it's hard, like this candlestick, I've got a mate for it at home. I had one, and I think I got it here at the convention. It took me at least 15 years to find a mate for it. So it's not a common color. And actually, when it's this thick in color, it's kind of a pretty color. Otherwise, mulberry can be a little drab, but this comes up with a much more purple type look when it's thicker. Light emerald, of course, boy, I know a lot of you like light emerald. And it was made into the 40s. Huge success. Amber, they kept it in the line till the end of the factory in the 50s. Rubina, sorry, Jack. It was not a good seller. That's one reason we like it. It's hard to find. And if you get something with good color, and this was very early in my collecting days, going back to the 1990s. I got this Ramshead bull, and look at the blue on it. And most of them don't have that kind of blue in it. So when it's got the full range of colors, Jack, it's pretty special, isn't it? And even if it doesn't, I'm going to speak about it right now. So these are the Doric's candlesticks to go with them. And I just felt really blessed, but there's no blue, there's no green, they're red. But as far as we know, there's only 3 sets of these that exist as well. So now I say that today, and there'll be 2 on eBay over the next month, 2 sets on eBay over the next month, but that we know about today. So Rubina was not a good seller, 25 and 26 probably only. So if you want something rare, it's more likely to be rare if they didn't make it long. Peach Blow was a major hit. The pink, they did change the name later, Dianthus Pink. That lasted till 43 at least, so very popular color. Then they came with the series of blues, and that's been written up a fair bit in the crystal balls. We don't know why they kept tinkering with their transparent blues, but they started with Aurora in 24, kind of lighter than all the others. Then they switched to dark night blue, took it deeper in color, took it a little more to the red range. Then they came out with Bluebell. A lot of us love that. Well, that leans green, and that was 26 to 28, and then was reintroduced later as Tahoe Blue. And then and that was probably it. And then in 28, they came out with Willow Blue, which was the precursor to Moonlight Blue. But then right in 29, right at the end, 29 to 31, when they did Decagon, they came out with Ritz Blue, which is deeper yet blue. So why they kept changing those blues up until 31 when they had Royal Blue, and then, of course, in, I think, 30...
The different names, there were like 4?
Aurora is the lightest one, the first one, 24, very short term. Then Night Blue, and these are in the Helmer's batch book. They were first Cobalt Blue 1, Cobalt Blue 2 in the books because we weren't sure, but we've been able to confirm this with documentation from the factory. And again, the labels that are on pieces. Then Bluebell, which was a little longer. And then Willow Blue. But then they came back with Ritz, and Ritz and Willow Blue overlapped each other. And actually, Bluebell might have as well. So there was a period there where they maybe were doing 3 of them. Just kind of fascinating. And of course, were they doing all this for us collectors today? They were just trying to make money, right? What would sell and what does, and the feedback from the representatives at their offices around the country. Well, they don't like that. They didn't sell. Come up with something different. Madeira was June 1929, gone by 1930. I have to admit, I'm in that group. I'm not totally convinced Madeira is a unique color. It might just have been a marketing name for amber. Because of the colors, I said crystal is the hardest to make and make uniformly, and the other two colors that are very difficult to make uniformly are amber and pink. And you think of peach blow, the range of colors of peach blow, from peachy pink to kind of a dirty brick pink almost, just a huge range, a very big range in color. And likewise amber, just a tremendous range in intensities, if it leans yellow, if it leans more reddish. So they are just very difficult colors to control. Blue is easy to control, for example. Green is easy to control and make it fairly uniform from batch to batch. Question?
I was just going to say, Bill and I put like 6 of our flower frogs in the peach blood and the pink.
Yeah.
And it was amazing.
Yeah.
Every one of them was different.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they were all called the same.
Yeah. Very difficult color to control from batch to batch. The other thing we've learned on the colors, and when the researchers, I don't see Frank and Vicki, they were so involved, but there was kind of a sensation that was like making chocolate chip cookies. There was a fixed formula that was used for every batch. Well, now we know with the batch books, Helmer's batch book, with Tommy Mosser's batch book, it wasn't that way. Because they didn't have ready access to all the ingredients at any point in time, so they would tweak the formula. There would also be differences in the cost. So cost and availability. The other things, it would be different in the summer if it's really humid, because a lot of these ingredients were in powder form. So the moisture content of those ingredients. So they would tweak. So you would, in Helmer's batch book or Tommy Mosser's, you'd see all these alternative formulas. And then notations, a little dark, a little light, all these different things. But they were using it and making glass with it. So there wasn't a single formula for these colors. We'll come back to that in just a minute. Gold crystal does make the cutoff, but I'm not really including it because it is right at the end of 29, and that's when the stock market crashed. So I think that was not the roaring 20s when gold crystal came out. That was the not so roaring 20s when gold crystal came out. Now, of course, gold crystal was popular and lasted into the 1940s. So the 1920s, at the beginning, they were still making a lot of the near-cut lines. Community, wheat sheaf, buzzsaw, colonial, gothic, plainware, cut wild rose, Stratford. They were, those were near-cut patterns. They were still making into the 20s. They actually introduced one that we normally consider to be near-cut in 21 called Chelsea. And a lot of people like Chelsea. I've got a couple examples here. And so it was a near-cut pattern, but it was actually introduced in 21. However, in 22, that's when C in the triangle was introduced. So the near-cut era was over. They were moving on from the near-cut era. So also during the 20s, and we have the internationally renowned authors here, Toby and Marty, to tell us about the atomizers and perfumes. Cambridge supplied them to different manufacturers. There's often I get a little tickle, eBay and otherwise, that everybody assumes they're all de Vilbus. They're not all de Vilbus. Cambridge also sold a fair bit of the bottles for the atomizers to Gironde, am I saying that right? And Van Woot especially, and I've got some examples here. Monkey lamps, owl lamps, 1920s, did not sell well. They're right in there with Rubina. But we sure like them now, don't we? Owl lamp. So things that don't sell well can become hot property for collectors. Decagon was the 20s, right at the end. Aero optic, block optic, the aquariums. They went nuts about aquariums. Doesn't that sound like the 20s in deco time, the aquariums? I don't know how those fish survived in some of those aquariums, but maybe they didn't survive long. But it was good if you were throwing a a Roaring 20 party to have your fish swimming in a Cambridge aquarium. Centennial came out in 1927, and that is a unique pattern. I've got an example here I'll show. Centennial, the name changed to Victorian, the name changed to Martha Washington, and the name changed finally to Heirloom. Same pattern, same line. Had 4 different names, different eras. So again, they were marketing class. They weren't making things convenient for us in 2024. The Moderna line, I've got an example here, and the humidors that are very collectible and popular came out then. Also, the flower frogs, flower holders, the geisha, the draped lady, the two-kid, bird on a stump, eagle, rose lady, bashful Charlotte, mandolin lady. They came out in the later 20s, so they were introduced within the Roaring 20s, and also the Buddhas came out in the 20s.
Also what?
The Buddhas.
Oh, the Buddhas. Thank you.
Yep. Individual items like the ram's head bowl, which is a complete rip-off of Wedgwood, English pottery, So much of Cambridge is a rip-off of another company. The companies copied each other. If it sold well, you'd make something that was similar to someone else. The turkey, Cambridge made as a copy of another company. You can just go down the swans, the 10-inch swan. There's some that have France stamped on the bottom. The little ball Everglade, France on the bottom, So, it made sense. If something was working, you'd start making it. So, the dolphin candlesticks, the dolphin bowl with the Mount Vernon base, tombstone bookends, the cat and dog bottles, and then the etchings aren't maybe the most collectible, but Marjorie, Cleo, classic, Rosalie, you like that? Window pane, Imperial Hunt, golf scene, dragon. Yeah, that's hot. And peacock. Willow, the dancing girls, Mahjong tiles. Pretty hard to find those. And stemware during the 20s, they had a lot of different stemware lines, but probably not many that are very hot and collectible today, other than the 3115. And this would be an example of it. And it's my favorite stemware line. How deco can you get, especially when it's etched Rosalie? It's really deco. So that was a popular and a good seller, but they didn't have a lot. The stemware more came again in the 1930s. Okay, a little bit about uranium glass. Are any of you getting tired of all of this glowing glass on eBay? Now we're crystal, glowing crystal. Yeah, it's got manganese in it. It'll glow. Big deal is the way I look at it. So we've gone through these phases before, but what I'm picking up, I think some antique dealers or glass dealers are really promoting it as a way to sell more glass. But I don't get it. To have you walk around with a black light to look at your collection in your cases, I just don't really quite understand it. So uranium oxide was used. It was actually in the form of sodium diuranate, but it's uranium. We often hear that it was spent or depleted, but actually the glass companies were using full bore uranium as well. The depleted had about half the radioactivity, but it was still very radioactive. That's why you can pick it up. So from the Henry Helmer's batch book, the amount of uranium per 1,000 pounds of sand, gold crystal had the least, 1 pound with 1,000 pounds of sand. And some batches had none, or some formulas had none. Next was light emerald, and man, do they show that glowing on eBay listings, right? 3.2 pounds with 1,000 pounds of sand. So it's 0.2% uranium. Doesn't take much for it to pick up and do some color, be a colorant. Jade is actually next. 3.4 pounds with 1,000 pounds of sand. Then ivory, and that'll glow. We all know the Custer glass will glow. 7 pounds, so 0.3%, not a lot. Topaz, our Vaseline for Cambridge collectors, 12.5 pounds. But it was still less than 1% of the formula. Which one was loaded with uranium among the Cambridge colors? Do I dare touch it? Primrose is loaded with uranium. I'm going to set it down right now. Primrose had over 59 pounds of uranium added to each bag. So it was about 3% of the formula was uranium. So yeah, if I was a glass repair person, I don't think I'd be working on Primrose. They worry about Vaseline. Now, I mean, topaz, no problem compared to Primrose. So I'm going to take my cheat sheet with me. Sure, you can. Please do.
What was the purpose of using the uranium?
Well, it added a yellow-green color. I mean, yellow more than green. It added, in other words, a sparkle and a brightness that you couldn't get otherwise. And of course, there was not an awareness that it was potentially dangerous at that time. World War II kind of put an end to it because they weren't going to use it to make glass. The government took control of it. But then after the World War II, it was available to the glass manufacturers. Yeah. Now today, I don't think there's much of it used anymore. Probably some. It's not banned. You can still use it, and it's not dangerous. So I was kidding here with the Primrose. It's embedded in the glass. It's not leaking radioactivity. Yeah.
You mentioned the quality of the sand affecting glass.
Huge.
Color. Where did Cambridge get their sand?
Well, they had a supply right here. That's why one of the reasons they had the factory here.
Well, I mean, was it specific sand or was it sandbox sand?
Well, I think it was just sand. But it would seem that, like I've written an article about Crown Tuscan, they really had trouble with Crown Tuscan. In the early days, they were making it when it was first launched in the 30s to get it uniform. Later years, it was quite nice and uniform in color. Well, when you try to make pink glass, green is not a good thing, right? So if there's much iron in the glass, it doesn't take much, it's going to color the glass green. So to counteract that, you add arsenic. And arsenic takes out bubbles or seeds, like the companies called them seeds, bubbles. But it also, if you don't get it just right, it'll turn the glass brown. So that's probably why they struggled there getting a uniform color. So it would seem like, I don't know this for a fact, but it seemed like they were able to get a purer or sand with less iron as time went on, and technology probably helped about that as far as cleaning the sand and magnetism.
That's what I'm saying. Do they have special sand sources, or did they just doctor it up?
I don't know for that sure on that, Ralph. I really don't know the history, but I know natural gas, coal were available here, and I think sand was nearby as well.
Yeah.
So they used what they could. So good question. So let's just go through these colors now a bit. So ebony, this is I got Marty to correct me here, Van Woot cigar, atomizer supplied by Cambridge, and this is the Etta etching, gold encrusted. And Etta is not common at all, and it's actually, the perfumes is the atomizer is one of the areas you will find it, perfumes and atomizers. So on gold encrusted, of course, gold incrustation pops on ebony very nicely. These are pretty desirable. The story is there's one set made. I don't know, that set must have had like 50 items each blank or something, because it's a little too plentiful for me to believe there was only one set made. But it's still difficult to find. But isn't it gorgeous? The Imperial Hunt, again, Mark and I spoke at one of our conventions. It's not Imperial Hunt Scene, just Imperial Hunt. And it's a nice etching. Came out in the later 1920s, about 1928. Then azurite, and it was a popular color, obviously. This is one of the dancing ladies. There's different dancing ladies, and the three of them, I believe, that can be used on different, sometimes they got all three, different combinations. These are very popular with collectors, the peacock, and either in green or black enamel. So they were doing enamel in the 20s, nothing like in the 30s when they were really heavily using enamel. And then this is Chelsea. It's almost always crystal, but they did make a few items in colors. And this piece is, of course, in azurite. again, introduced in 21, Chelsea, and azurite was introduced in 1922. The peacock bowl, there's not many of these known. This is Carrera. It's a milk glass, a pretty good milk glass, but milk glass was never Cambridge's forte compared to other companies. Who was really good at making milk glass? Huh? Westmoreland. Good. Panel grape. Oh my gosh, it is so good. And you hardly ever get an off color with Westmoreland's milk glass. I can't speak for Fenton, how good theirs was. And Cambridge sometimes, there'll be streaks and that type thing. It was okay. And this is a bowl where they actually put in those peacocks and then gold encrusted them, which works pretty good on the Carrera. Then the Primrose came out. This obviously was a short-term color. Maybe the uranium was an expensive ingredient. I don't know. But it wasn't a lengthy production color. But it is pretty appealing, isn't it? I think an awful lot of people like the yellow. It's a nice yellow for Primrose. This is the Vilbus, very definitely, and I think a pretty sweet-looking atomizer with it's an etching that's filled in with enamel. Then we come to Helio, and I know some of you like Helio, another atomizer with the fittings by De Vilbus. The glass is made by Cambridge and supplied to De Vilbus. This has got some of the gold spattering that's placed on it. Then this is, a lot of us just refer to them as cylinder vases. We don't worry about the numbers. We call them the cylinder vases. These come in different sizes, and this is gold encrusted classic, the classic etching with some enamel on as well. Then moving on to ivory. Again, ivory was introduced in 1924. This is a vase that's block optic. Jack, what do you see this most often in? Rubina. They made a lot, when they were making Rubina, they made a lot of this shape. And if it's got the blue in it, and it more often has blue in it than other pieces of Rubina, it's really, really, really nice. They made a number of the flower holders in ivory. None of the other opaque colors had the flower holders made, just ivory. So, and I think they're well liked and very highly collectible.
Does that one have a kind of a tinge to it?
Oh,
Green
there's
tinge?
a lot of them do.
Little green tinge?
I don't know why, but a lot of the flower holders have a green tinge to them.
You really see it.
And sometimes on eBay they'll list them as green. Yeah. Isn't this deco? This decoration that's hand put on at Cambridge. In fact, you can see the paintbrush lines in it, so it's a stencil they use to paint on those colors individually. Pretty incredible. I like deco, so I really like that. Then the iris decoration. I have a number of pieces of this. I didn't bring the mate to this one. And John Wolfe's mother, I think, aunt, okay. So there's someone we know actually painted this decoration on. Again, I think hand-painted and quite attractive. Another hand-done decoration, black border. I call this white daisy. I don't think there's an official name for it, but it works out kind of a caramel flashing on the bottom as well. It comes in many different blanks. The other thing they did with ivory, of course, is the encrusting with enamels on an etching. So this is the basket on a cylinder vase, a large one. The perfume lamps, quite a few were supplied to De Vilbus. Many of them were just like enamel paint on them. When I first obtained this, gosh, I wish I could get one also in azurite or helio. I don't think they've ever popped other than on the jade as far as the dragon decoration, but it's a standout piece, isn't it? It really, really looks nice. This I felt very fortunate to add to my collection. If you go to the museum, there's one jade geisha, and I think this is the only Buddha that we know of in jade. So it was not a standard production color at all. We talked about this lovely Pomona green. This item, I was tickled, Ken and Jane, to add to my collection. And I said, why did they happen to put Imperial Hunt gold encrusted on this blank in this color? All three came together at the same time. It just coincidentally, Pomona green and Imperial Hunt were introduced within a couple months of each other, so let's give it a whirl. But there's not much of it out there. Then the mystery piece. I already had a question about it. So this console bowl. What is that? Is there something wrong with it? Centennial, Martha Washington. Why they put it on the underside like this so you could hardly see it from the top, I have no idea. Huh?
Sometimes you did it just like that, you used it.
Well, not as a council bowl you wouldn't, but I suppose you could use this for, yeah.
You would, you put
Yeah.
a drape lady either way.
You put a drape lady?
Oh, yeah, you put a drape lady, you could put little flower in it.
Yeah, okay.
There's a chili.
Cheese ball, okay. Now we're getting creative, all righty. Well, let's talk about the transparents then. So, very nice etching with enamel filling, the willow etch, and with some gold on it as well. These canopy sets, this is definitely Cambridge, but there was another company called Fry that was making a lot of canopy sets. And I can't say for sure, but I think some that have been declared as Cambridge are actually made by Fry, which is a good manufacturer, and nothing wrong with collecting Fry or Sinclair or Heisey or Imperial or anything else. But sometimes things collectors want to claim it as their own often when maybe it's made by someone else. The eagle, flower holder, and of course with the satin finish. Very easy way to finish an item. Then another example of Chelsea. This one's unusual because it's topaz, but it certainly fits the time period that they were making Chelsea. Very little of it in topaz. The Buddha was made in topaz, and these are out there, unlike the jade one. I don't think there's many of these, the Everglade mug. So Everglades, that's a color from the a design from the 1930s, excuse me. So this piece is really from the 1930s. It could be, I think, introduced 29. So maybe it's the 20s, but it's a close one on that. I talked about this piece with the willow blue bottom, stem and foot, and then the goblet with the rosalie. Just a gorgeous combination. I had one of these years ago, and I sold it at the show here, and I kicked myself ever since. So I bought another one, finally came my way. We talked about the dolphin candlestick. I think there was just one set of these that popped up. People went pretty crazy for them. It's the stemware with the gold-encrusted Marjorie. So Marjorie's almost always on crystal blanks, so it's a little bit different to find it on Marjorie. Then in the light emerald, this does not have an official name. It does not appear in any Cambridge catalogs, but the color is right, the shape is right, so this is one we've claimed that it's probably Cambridge. Now, in shape, it's almost identical to the eagle. The bottom is identical. And a hypothesis that some have, it's only popped up in light emerald. It doesn't come up very often. If you look at them, it's like, do you suppose they introduced this bird on a stump? And it was like, it ain't as cute as we thought it was going to be. So let's go back and work on that mold a little more and turn it into an eagle. It'd be pretty easy to do, wouldn't it? To just take out some more metal from the mold. And all of a sudden you've got, instead of a bird on a stump, you've got a American eagle. So could be, we don't know. A lot of things we don't know, we probably never will know for sure. So a lot of you have heard about elegant glass from the Depression era. Is this Depression era? No, this is pre-Depression. But would you consider this elegant glassware anyhow? I like them. I think they're cool, really cool. I like the dog and cat bottles. But elegant? Not exactly. But it's hard to find the caps. If you got them with the caps, they're a very, very good seller, very popular with collectors. Yeah?
What would those be used for? Just alcohol or water or?
I suppose.
Okay, I mean, there's no specific use?
It is 20s,
Yeah.
so
It's a prohibition.
it's a prohibition thing, yeah. Yeah, speakeasy, maybe. Yeah, I don't know. Then amber, of course, they introduced it, and it stayed in the line. Again, there's a lot of range in color. This is golden inkwell from the desk set, gold encrusted with the basket decoration. This is, I think these are beautiful. It's a centerpiece from the 1920s. And in the catalog, the 27-29 catalog, they have it presented, etched Dresden rose. This is gold encrusted, and with or without satin finish. So they got satin on the other side often, and then the gold encrusted Dresden rose. Also, you'll find this with various cuttings, and I don't know if they're Cambridge cuttings or not. Very likely they could be. But this one is nice because it's got the amber satin flower holder going right with it. But I believe they probably sold them with other flower holders other than just the Drape Lady. You know, it could be a two kid or it could be something else. Then for that Rubina, you can tell they were still some community line, the near cut era still being made and carried over. This one has reasonably good color. We talked about the ram's head bowl and the Doric candlesticks. Then that community line, this is a picture that doesn't appear, this blank doesn't appear anywhere in any Cambridge materials. But there's just no doubt based on the shapes. You know, community's got these curves on the top of the panels, and it's got the classic edge, which means it's Cambridge, for sure. It was made and decorated by Cambridge. This same picture is in Colors Book 2, I believe, with Cleo on it. But just picture etch Cleo. But there's just little doubt in my mind that this is from the community line, and it was just a trial blank that they had for a short period of time, and then they moved on from it. They do have in the catalogs a soda fountain tumbler that's a bit bigger than this from the community line. But this tumbler that came with this picture, the set, is not in any Cambridge materials either. So they were trying things. The classic etch looks quite nice on them.
Did they take the handle off or not apply the handle and make that into a vase?
I've never seen it in any, I've never seen it as a vase, but I've never seen it before as a picture other than that one in the Colors Book.
It looks like a vase, though.
The shape could be, yeah. And maybe they had that intention in mind. I don't know. Marjorie, yeah. This one, I think is pretty sweet. It is the dragon on this vase. And when it appeared in an auction here in Ohio, and I had a friend bid for me and pick it up, and I thought, well, it must be, because it doesn't have a band etching, it must be a cocktail shaker that needs a top. No. Look how thick that is. Believe me, I have tried to get a cocktail shaker top on this. It will not fit. It was made to be a vase. And maybe just with the etching, they said, no, we don't want to put a etching on this vase. So it is a vase, and it's got the dragon on it. Kenny said he's got one in blue. That would be pretty sweet. No, I'm not trading, and I bet you aren't either. So another one of our elegant animal bottles. Again, these are so hard to find, the lids. You can imagine at estate sales when they get separated, that they're going to get separated. Then Bluebell, a lot of us love Bluebell, that kind of aqua water blue. So this is a letter holder from the desk set with the Dresden rose on it. I love this piece, and I was surprised that Millie said, you've got the piece as well?
Yes.
This is a hard one to find.
Candlesticks.
Yeah, me too. It took me a long time to get the candlesticks to go with it. I got the bowl first, actually. And this is quite a sweet bowl, isn't it? They're not really common. You know, you're likely going to find them in amber, light emerald, or peach blow, but it is gorgeous and bluebell. Then we've got the Drape Lady. Now, with both ivory and bluebell, it's far easier to find the tall one than this short one. Yeah. So for a bluebell, I bet it's 10 to 1. Ivory, maybe 5 to 1. So, but often people like the big ones because they're more impressive. They're larger, you know, and with the scallop base. So it's, you know, what you want in your collection. But actually, the smaller ones, the ivory and the bluebell, are harder to find. Took me a long time. I'm going to go off on one more branch. My very first convention here in 1992, Cliff McNeil had one of these in his booth, and I just lusted over it. I wanted it so bad. I was shaking when I entered the showroom here. I could not believe the beautiful glass, and I could afford almost nothing. But I always remember that. I wanted it so bad, and it took me 25 years, I think, to be able to add one of these to my collection. This is the Willow Blue, the Moderna line. It was not a popular seller. I think it's a very cool, deco-looking line, but it didn't stick around long. It was not a popular seller. And then finally, I'm sure you're saying, is he ever going to be done? A Willow Blue 2 Kid, and this one has a satin finish. It's unusual to find it with the satin finish. Now these 2 Kids, they say they're Moonlight. Based on the production period, they probably should all be Willow Blue. There is a chance they brought the 2 Kid back later, very late in the 40s, that there could be some that were made in Moonlight Blue, but we tend to think most of them are Willow Blue. Does it really matter? No, it's a nice blue flower holder. So that's what I've got, Julie. I don't know if you've got time for questions or